Welcome once again, everyone, and very good afternoon to all of you. I think most of you are from India and some of you are from outside India as well. So very good evening to you who are outside India. As I had shared, I'm personally very excited about this webinar because content marketing is so critical today, and especially when we are going to hear from someone who has done so well for themselves, that would be making it even more interesting. Quick background about Alok. Alok is a graduate of IIT Kanpur. He did his engineering in 2001. Then he worked in Amadeus in Europe for around 4 years. And then he moved on to do his MBA from INSEAD and started Ixigo in 2007. Ixigo has done really well over last close to 7 years now. And the best part is they have used content, social, even mobile apps. Now they're very, very active and popular at Ixigo. Today they have more than 2.5 million active users, monthly active users across mobile and web. So without taking much time, I'll pass it on to Alok. I will just make him presenter. Yes, Alok, you can share your screen as well as your video, and over to you.
All right.
Great.
Can you see my
screen? Yes, Alok,
now?
we can see your screen. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay.
I just put my video off.
Yeah. Okay, I hope everybody can see me now. Okay, Pradeep, am I visible now?
Visible.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes,
so hello everyone. I guess this topic is of interest to a lot of you out there, especially because it's become more of a buzzword lately. But we're going to talk about content marketing, which is one of the well-known growth hacking techniques by now. And before I start out, one of the things I wanted to talk about is who I am, and I think Pradeep has already talked about this, but just to give you some background on why this topic is of interest to us. So we started a travel search engine in India in 2007, and we've grown it to over 2.5 million unique visitors per month. Largely, our growth has been due to what we've been doing on our product, on our content, and how we're leveraging that content on our social media channels. And honestly speaking, I'm still learning quite a few marketing tricks every single day, and I think that's one of the most exciting parts about running an online company today. It's the marketing bit which actually evolves so quickly, and your consumers are always one step ahead of you, and you need to learn how you need to reach them and grow your audience based on those learnings. So jumping right into the topic now, one of the things that always intrigues me is how most of the marketers today are still thinking in terms which are more than a decade old, whether it's talking about print and TV, whereas they should be talking more about Facebook and WhatsApp, whether it's talking about TRPs or number of inserts, whereas they should be talking about views, likes, and shares. And going forward, what I expect is that more and more of content marketing or marketing in general is going to be about personalization. It's going to be about knowing who you are, and therefore offering you what you are most likely to like. And therefore, it's also going to be more of science as opposed to shooting in the dark. I think the big crux of why content marketing matters in 2014 is because it's more about storytelling and it's less about selling. Right? So marketing used to be part of the entire sales strategy, but now if you look at marketing, it's more of a way to actually grow your audience, right? To grow people who actually like your brand, love your brand, and are likely to engage with your brand. And that comes at the price of telling, engaging stories, telling, and creating, sharing interesting content. And as human beings, we have a tendency to actually tell each other stories, and that's why, we keep sharing jokes on WhatsApp, or interesting articles on LinkedIn, or all sorts of random stuff on Facebook. But the psyche that we are actually human beings, and we are actually people who love sharing stories, telling stories, and listening to stories. And I think that's what we are seeing the internet evolve towards. It's becoming a storytelling medium. And as a marketeer, it's the opportunity to create interesting stories and share them has never been better. Just jumping into some of the compelling changes we are noticing in user behavior, especially in the last 1 year, 2013-14. So traditional media in most countries has either started declining, or the growth has slowed down, and digital is growing. And of course, mobile is leading that evolution. We are creating, curating, sharing, and resharing content, right? And the frequency at which we are sharing content, and the number of sources which we use for sharing that content from, is also growing. So we are sharing more diverse forms of content. We are sharing across multiple platforms, and we are sharing using multiple mediums and channels, right? So there's a graph at the bottom. This study is from the US, but we'll notice similar trends in India and other countries, that the number of sources and usage, and this study is only just for 2010, 2011, and right now, this is probably doubled. But the number of sources that we are sharing for the usage of that content that's being shared, all of that is actually going up over time, right? And what that also does is that you are getting bits and pieces of content from multiple platforms, multiple channels. As a consumer, you get hit by all this content multiple times in a day. Some of the content is coming from your friends. Some of it is coming from colleagues. Some of it is coming from brands. But at the end of the day, all of this is vying for your time and attention. And as we look forward, I think time and attention are what have become the most precious commodities. And this is the insight which content marketing is trying to leverage, because content marketing is essentially nothing but a technique to get your time and attention, right? Before I get into content marketing, I had the temptation of sharing the big secret of marketing, which is something which might sound intuitive, but most people don't really focus their energies around this. Is that the most successful marketers know that the best growth hacks are the ones that haven't been discovered yet. And so it's the same with content marketing, which I think now is already in the fad phase. And how it evolves in the next 1 year, next 2 years, might be dramatically different from here on, because most of the marketers are already in the doing it phase as opposed to thinking about it phase, right? So whatever I'm about to say, just take it with a pinch of salt. Some of these things might not be valid, a year down the line. And the corollary of this is, of course, that you need to try new things, new apps, new platforms, new channels. Whenever you find great ROI on a channel, you push the pedal on it. And if too many people have discovered a channel, it becomes a waste of your time or money. When you do too much of the same, again, your customers and audience, they start getting bored, right? So if you notice, the most innovative companies are the ones which have actually been bold, taken risks, and come up with forms of content or ways of distributing it which have been, different, radical, risque at times. But they're the ones who get all the attention. They're the ones who get talked about, and they get a lot of free publicity because of that. Now, what I'm saying here is that content marketing is something which is already being talked about, which is already being experimented with by the early adopters. I think most of the early adopters already got onto it. The larger brands are now catching up, and in probably a year's time, you'll start seeing the peak, and then post that there might be something else that comes up which is even better than content marketing, and we might find a new buzzword for it. But for now, the rules I'm going to talk about are still valid. So let's get into the process. Essentially, content marketing is about creating or curating interesting content, publishing it on various mediums, and then distributing it using various marketing techniques, optimizing it based on feedback, user-generated content, or analytics, and then using that to grow your audience base for future content. Sometimes your audience also funnels back content which becomes your next piece. Many a times it's the users who are actually growing your audience base because they're sharing it, they're liking it, they're actually talking about it, and therefore that completes the loop. And the more you create, the more you curate, the more you publish, distribute, the more bigger the audience pool is. And how you leverage your audience pool for better creation and for better sharing is what the secret sauce really lies in, right? So when you look at this, many of you might be wondering, all this sounds great, but how do you actually figure out what sort of content is going to go viral, and how do you figure out, what sort of content will work, what sort of content will not work, and why at all should I even consider, doing this if it requires significant amount of resources in terms of, people who understand content, people who understand how to publish and market content. And the reason is very simple, that it's not so difficult to find quality content as we might be imagining, right? I mean, most of us think that you have to be you need to be somebody who understands marketing like an agency does, or like somebody with 10 years of marketing experience does. But the fact is that all you need to understand is human behavior, right? And you can curate. So there's a lot of interesting content on the web. There are tons of interesting, engaging, amusing, funny pieces of content, whether it's pictures, videos, write-ups that are already out there, right? And we do this every day, right? So when we forward somebody else's joke, when we actually combine 10 jokes and send them to a friend of ours, I mean, we are curating content already, right? Now, I'm saying that if you are a brand and you want to publish content for the purpose of content marketing, then you can curate content which is related to what you do, which is related to the industry you're in, which is related to what your consumers or your customers might be looking for, or they might find helpful, engaging. And you can build collections. You can actually create compelling stories around the curated content, and actually repackage it in a certain way, right? So imagine that there is an interesting piece of content that's already out there, and which actually is written in text. Now, if you can create a compelling visual story out of it, you can reuse it and repackage it to make it more interesting. You can even find 4 or 5 related pieces of content, and you can create an even bigger graphic. You might even create a slideshow of it and share it on SlideShare. If you have the time, energy, then you can even go and create a video out of it, right? Now, it does require a certain degree of work, but I'm saying that you don't need to be completely creative, imaginative to come up with content. There's already a lot of content out there. All you got to do is combine, bits and pieces together and join the dots, and you will end up seeing results from some of these things that you'll do. Now, for those who actually are creative, of course, there is nothing better than creating your own content. Now, nowadays, since visual is something which is very important, you need to understand how to create good visual content, which means you need people in your team to understand design as well as copywriting. If you don't, then you can still create with the help of external agencies who can come up with interesting content related to your space. Of course, you always have one more path, which is to get inspired. I've seen a lot of even big brands doing this. Now, if you know that there is a certain kind of content that has a tendency to go viral, right? You should shamelessly, just do similar stuff. I think, calling it copying might be politically incorrect, but I'm seeing even large brands doing this, quite frequently. And essentially what this is, most of the content that's being used for coming up with interesting stories revolves around bits and pieces of content that are somebody else's. Now, as long as it's not a copyrighted piece of content, as long as you're allowed to actually use it and you can give attribution to it, there's nothing wrong in actually using some of that which has actually worked, right? So many a times you will see that some brands on Facebook are also reposting some of their popular posts, maybe twice a year, and they still see results. So we've done this a couple of times. I mean, we post something that already went viral 8 months ago, and start seeing more virality right now because some people might have missed it. Then we might have new users who liked our page after that, and we still see those things going viral. I mean, if something is so appealing, of course, you might argue that people might get bored with the same stuff. But the other good thing is the attention spans of people are going down. The amount of time people are spending on an individual piece of content is actually going down. But at the same time, if you're known as a publisher of good quality content, and if you're able to inspire people to come back to your content whenever there's more, that's what we're talking about. That's what the whole objective is. So even though the attention span and social memory is shrinking, we've got to be seen as a company that has the ability to continuously come up with interesting, informing and engaging content, right? So you can curate, you can create, or you could just get inspired. Some of the considerations when you are doing this is on quality versus quantity, right? Now, a lot of companies have actually hired a large pool of content writers who are actually coming up with content in a factory-like mode with hundreds of pieces per day. But it's not necessarily about quantity. It's actually more about quality, because remember that on most of the social mediums, your karma or your clout or however you want to term it, depends not just on the quantity of engagement, but also on the quality of engagement, right? And it's the quality that actually supersedes everything. So if you have a 500,000 community on Facebook where you have 15% talking about, it's actually better than having a 10 million strong community with a 2% talking about, right? So I think we should never lose that focus, and you should put quality first. If you do not have something which is likely to arouse attention, do not publish it just for the sake of content marketing, right? If you do not have something genuinely informative or helpful, do not publish it just for the sake of content marketing, right? Visual versus textual. I think the winners are already getting drawn here, because most of the social media is evolving towards supporting and promoting more visual content. So I think we will start to see more and more visual. And when I say visual, it's not just a graphic or it's not just a static image, but it could even be a slideshow. It could even be a Vine video. It could be a short, short video or animation. And like if you see on Google Plus, a lot of the trending content is animated GIFs, because they allow that. And I think more and more visual content is winning across social media, the way I look at it right now. So I would highly encourage people to think visual and not just textual. Shareable versus readable, right? So this is a product and technology challenge. Like, how do you publish content in a way that makes it not just consumable, but also easily shareable? How do you actually engage audiences enough to make them want to share it, make them want to, like it, tweet about it, go to all social media and actually talk about it? And some of it is a design challenge, because I don't know if you've all noticed that some of the blogs have a small graph at the top which shows that post is trending at a certain velocity, right? Now, it's interesting to know that the piece of content you're reading right now is actually trending to the extent that it's shooting off the charts, because then your tendency to want to share it will be higher than something which is plateauing. And it's some of those visual inputs that might be required at times to make people feel how valuable that content is. The most basic example is just how you show the number of likes or the number of tweets from an article, on the top or on the right, where you are saying that 1,000 people have talked about it or recommended it or liked it. Again, that's visual feedback that makes you want to share it again, right? So you have to design this content with shareability in mind. Mass appeal versus early adopter appeal. Now, this is a call that the brand has to take. One can say that things with mass appeal sound like the most obvious choices, because like if you have something which is funny, everyone is going to laugh, and share it. Versus early adopter appeal, so you might have something which is really intelligent and really witty, but only 5% of your audience actually understands what you're saying, and they're the ones who want to tweet about it and write about it, etc. Now, there's a trade-off, right? So if you do something which has mass appeal, first of all, most of those things would either have been done in some form before, or would have been, would probably not be a good fit for your brand many times, right? So what you got to see there is, if it's mass appeal, then does it fit with my brand's philosophy? Does it fit with my brand values? Am I just doing it for the sake of mass appeal, or is there something which has mass appeal and at the same time mass appeal within my user group, within my audience, right? Versus early adopter appeal. So early adopter appeal works very well on Twitter, works very well on LinkedIn, because you've got a more informed, engaged, a slightly more evolved audience. And there, you might want to say that I'm okay if my tweet actually gets retweeted by only 10 guys, as long as those 10 guys have more than 5,000 followers, right? Whereas, on Facebook, we are all happy when we get like 1,000+ likes on a particular post, or like 500 shares on a post. And I think those are the nature of the medium will also decide, what kind of appeal you're actually going after. The user-generated content, it's becoming increasingly important to have user-generated content as a part of your content marketing strategy. Now, it can be done in many ways. I'll walk you through a couple of examples later. But essentially what we're talking about is giving users a voice and helping to build conversations with them around the content that you have. So, for example, you could run a campaign, like in our industry, people have run campaigns where they said, why don't you share pictures of all the places that you've been to, and we will essentially then create nice graphics out of them, and some of the best pictures submitted will actually win a prize. And then there's a long blog post which actually describes the kind of pictures that came in, and we weave them into a story, and we use that content then to create something that is that is publishable, likable, shareable. And then you can even do a press release around it. You can actually do a social post around it. So you can actually take content from users and use it in meaningful ways. You can do audience polls. So if you want to come up with a list of top 10 things that people do, etc., I mean, you can just do an audience poll around it, and then when you repackage it and you share it, you will see that the audience will engage better because they know that the data is also coming from users. Right, so if you give users a voice, you build conversations around them, you will see more engagement. You will see, a better following. One final tip around content is don't build a content machine, build a content brand. What I mean is, don't just build a factory of churning out 100 articles a day or 100 interesting infographics per day. But try to build a content brand with some well thought strategy behind it, right? How do you do it? I'm coming to that. So the way to do it is by changing your way of thinking. You've got to think like the buyer, or essentially the user, customer, whoever it is in your case. Understand their likes, dislikes, and what makes them tick. So if you understand your audience better, you're likely to come up with better content. Right? And every time you post something, it gives you the opportunity to understand your content better. because your audience will give you feedback by writing comments, by liking or not liking, and you will quickly know if you're not learning from those and retweaking your next post, then it's a lost opportunity. Every time you post something, you distribute a piece of content, the next one should rely on learning from it, and that's the only way to becoming the buyer or inspire people to with a mass following on Twitter or on Facebook, which is not able to inspire me. And this is not just about trying to be amazing, but it's actually about being useful, and it's about being informative, right? If you're useful and informative, and you're seen as the thought leader in your space, then you can inspire people. You have to sound authoritative, because if you understand your space and your audience better than everyone else, you have to be authoritative about something. So you have to come up with bold things, right? I'll show you a couple of examples later on how you can be more authoritative as well. You have to stand for something, right? So you can't just be doing one-off hit and trials with this content. You're actually trying to stand for something that you actually believe in. And you got to keep thinking ahead. So you do not follow everything your competition is doing just for the sake of it. Even if it means that you're posting just 2 times a day, but if your both posts are actually great posts and you get huge engagement on them, it's better than somebody who's posting 10 times a day and not even getting 10% of that engagement, right? So a few examples on what I just talked about. This one is from Zomato. A lot of you might have seen this already. So they did these things vegetarians are tired of hearing. They actually put some phrases which a lot of them actually came from sense of identity that users have, even if the came up with, but it looks like it's all static. And that's why these kind of things actually are shared, because you have a sense of identity with it. Because you're a vegetarian, right? And then of course the next thing is people ask, why don't the non-vegetarians have one? And I think a few days later they did a non-vegetarian one. But essentially what they did is, if they had done just say, these are the 10 things that vegetarians are tired of hearing, and 10 things that non-vegetarians are tired of hearing. I think just a list or a bullet point list would not have got any virality at all on any social channel, right? But if you convert it into something which looks more appealing, something which has this laid out, which is easy to read, it starts getting more virality. So visual always works better. Second example, one thing which seems to work all the time is if you newsjack, right? So recently we had the India-Pakistan T20 match. What we did on Ixigo is just a small post, a visual one which said 6 p.m., a lot of people getting into Metro 7 p.m. But that was because, it was topically relevant at that time. The news of the moment, it's already trending, people are talking about it, people are excited about it, they're likely to share it even more than if you would have done this on any other day, right? So I think visual plus newsjack or visual plus sense of identity, these things have always worked. Example number 3 is about celebrating the customer or involving the customer, right? So recently Virgin Atlantic, they ran this promo saying if you have a name which is one of the common filmy name in Bollywood, like Rahul, Simran, Karan, Anthony, etc., we'll give you discounts. We'll give you, in some cases 10, in some cases 20% discounts on international flights. Now this promotion, I think every newspaper, magazine in India covered this, and all that PR came for free, right? But coming up with this content and coming up with this kind of contest, I mean, this is content. This content gets, everybody with those names, every Rahul, every Simran, every Karan, every Anthony in my social network actually shared this because they were super excited about it. I don't know how many tickets they actually ended up booking, but all of them had a sense of identity, and many people found this wacky or creative enough to actually want to share it, right? But the best part is they were celebrating their customers. They were actually saying, if you are named Simran, there is something special I have to offer to you. It's more like a personalized offer as opposed to like a 20% discount for everybody, right? And those things always get more attention. The fourth example is how you combine web and social. Again, this is from Ixigo, but if you look at left side, we did this just around Holi, just before Holi. We came up with a list of the best Holi parties in India, and we also posted on Facebook, Twitter, etc. Now this thing went viral because it was topically relevant, because it was visual, it had nice pictures, and because we were able to actually, leverage this content better for search engine optimization, because a lot of people will actually search for this on Google a couple of days before Holi, right? And we did this even for every city in India. Right now, if you keep doing things like that which are relevant in your category, in your industry, you're bound to get attention. So this is part newsjacking and part actually coming up with interesting curated content about what you do. So just quick considerations on optimization, because I mentioned optimization in the process. So for optimization, you might want to consider a few things. One is appeal. So appeal means, if you show somebody the headline and a short description and a photo of the content that you're about to do, or if it's just a visual that you show just a visual, how excited does it get people to actually read more or spend more time looking at it, right? And you can do this test very quickly in-house. You don't even need to publish it on social media to find out how appealing it is. The next thing for optimization is SEO. So is this something you want search engines to discover and index, and you want to appear, on the top on search queries related to this kind of content? If yes, then you might have to optimize for SEO. Now, this is not a presentation on SEO, but I'm sure you can go and find out, 20 ways to optimize a page that can work, and start with the title and description, for example. And then there's social. So social, again, the social title, which is different actually from the SEO title. The social title is the one that Facebook uses with their OG title, the open graph. Now, does the title description image appearing on Facebook actually work if somebody looks at it? Is it appealing enough to get enough likes and reshares? How is it appearing on Twitter or LinkedIn when somebody shares that link? And it's very important to see what the form factor of that image or that title, and the copy needs to be different. So the copy of the title for SEO and the copy of the title for social need to be completely different, because one of them is written for the search engine and the other one is written for humans. And many times, you want to optimize differently for both, right? And finally, but most importantly, mobile. Since more and more of us are actually opening our social media, email, etc. on mobile, what if somebody emails that content? What if somebody saw it on Facebook but from their phone and they clicked on it on their phone? Is the landing page for that content actually optimized? Does it render well? Does it have mobile optimized images? All of that, right? And how easy is it to share from that page once users find that page, right? So you got to consider all these things while optimizing. And then most importantly, how you measure success and how you pivot based on what you measured is the most critical part, because a lot of brands out there are posting interesting, engaging content, but very few of them are able to leverage the learnings to figure out what they need to post next, right? So you got to measure the appeal by testing and talking to people. You got to measure social by actually looking at, in fact, social within a few minutes, you will know whether it works, right? Within an hour of a post, you know for sure its virality potential, and the half-life of any post on Facebook is 3 hours, which means that the total number of likes that you will ever get on that post, you can predict that by the number of likes you have in 3 hours. Just double that, and that's approximately the total number of likes you will ever get. What that means is that within a few minutes you'll know whether the content is probably within those 3 hours you'll be 100% sure how good your content was or bad it was, right? And therefore you would know whether you want to spend money to promote that post or not, right? So any post which has less than 1% engagement among your fans is not worth promoting, by the way, right? So on web, again, you look for the classical metrics like traffic growth on that page, but you need to slice and dice it by social, by referral, by direct, by SEO, and understand what those people landing there, let's say by a social referral, what are they doing? What, are they reading? What percentage of those people are actually sharing it further, and tracking those metrics and learning from those metrics. If you boil everything down to just one metric, then social sharing is actually the most important metric, and all other metrics will become sub metrics. So number of people who view it, a certain percentage of them will actually share it, and it's the ones who actually share it which are the most critical ones, right? So if you're able to share, if you're able to make them more shareable, I think that works, right? Email, you use tracking technology to measure opens and clicks, and of course, that's something very simple to do, and most people are already doing that. But again, how can you make it easier to share from an email, right? How can you make it easier to reshare, after landing from an email on a landing page? Things like that. We need to consider that. And then, of course, most importantly, you need to restructure your marketing team a little bit. Your marketing team starts looking a little bit like a publishing team as well, because you have content creators, you have curators. Sometimes people could wear multiple hats, but you need people with design talent, with writing talent, with copy talent. You need people who are good at understanding users and emotions, and you need a mix of left brain, right brain people. Of course, you need content editors to make sure the quality of content that's being posted has been reviewed. You need people who are good at managing the social handles where the posting happens, so that they can optimize posts based on size or copy being posted there. And you also need content marketers who actually understand this whole 9 yards and can manage this process. And at the same time, they're responsible for the distribution side and the optimization side and the growth side of it. Right, so that's how in most small startups you will see that one or two people will wear all these hats. In larger companies, you tend to have content divisions within marketing which actually have 5 or 6 people who do all this. So content distribution, I won't talk about what has worked in the past. I wanted to spend a little time about talking about what will work in the future, because the past is history, and the future is a mystery. But the past is actually not going to be relevant at all. The way the marketing techniques are evolving, you've got to only worry about the future. So there will be increasing pressure on quality, right? For many reasons, because everybody will understand the power and potential of content marketing. Everybody will start doing it. You'll start getting hammered by tons of content from all sorts of brands every single day. So there will be a content deluge, and a lot of sponsored posts and stories coming in, and there'll be a lot of reactions like, so what, that's spammy, not impressed, let's unfollow this, let's block that, and you want to avoid that, right? You want to break through that clutter. So there'll be more pressure on quality of content, originality of content. There'll be more pressure on the quality of curation in case you're curating, and there'll be more pressure on being the first one to actually do it, right? Rather than being a follower. So what that means is that you need to, the chase for creative people is only going to get, more competitive, right? So mobile, again, obvious one being hammered to death here, but mobile web is bigger than desktop web in India already, and that's not going to change. That's going to accelerate, right? Mobile and tablets growth are going to accelerate, and you need to align your content distribution strategy with that. You need to make it simpler to share content from within your app, from within your mobile web, optimize for social, allow sharing, have the +1s on those pages, figure out how to do better app distribution using that content, stuff like that. Social, again, social will become the most dominant channel for content marketing. It's pretty obvious right now that we are already halfway there. I mean, 100 million plus social profiles from India. So I foresee that social will remain the most important channel for content marketing. I mean, it will be more important than SEO going forward. And visual, which is infographics, photos, like, so I foresee a lot of activity on the visual side because we're still not tapping into things beyond photos. But animated GIFs, short videos, even slideshare kind of slideshows, etc. Can actually be leveraged a lot more by brands than they're doing right now. And 90% of all traffic on internet in 2017 will actually be video. So you got to be cognizant of that fact. Now brands will become publishers, educators, and entertainers. So this is something which large companies are finding it very hard to digest, but brands are actually going to become publishers, educators, and entertainers. And what that means, it means that you need to reskill, you need to realign, and you need to have a more agile mentality in your marketing team, right? Because these things are changing by the minute, by the hour, and by the day. And it's not a marketing plan you can build on 1st of April and then come back on the next year, 31st March, and ask what's the progress on it. It's actually something you need to track every single hour, every single day, and pivot many times a week, right? And lastly, what you'll see more and more of is to celebrate and involve the customer, which is the Virgin Atlantic example, the Zomato example. I mean, the more you identify with what your customers' pain areas are, or what your customers, things that he's overjoyed by are, or things that evoke strong emotions among your customers, the more you are able to identify with those strong emotions that your customers have, the more likely that they will share the kind of content you come up with, because in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those things always work, but you just got to be very, very careful that you don't tweak those emotions, you don't actually do it in the wrong way, you don't actually overdo it, and you don't actually piss people off, because sometimes when you're playing with emotions, it can go either way. So you've got to draw a very fine line of what sort of things are doable and what are not. But emotions always work. I mean, everybody likes to have a laugh at times. Everybody wants to read witty things. Everybody wants to share things that will make others feel that they are smarter. So yeah, I mean, I think some of these might be very obvious, but I can't overemphasize how structurally companies will have to change to adapt to this. I can't overemphasize how visually we're still not doing enough, and there's going to be a lot more pressure on quality. So people who are creative are actually be more in demand over time, which is a good thing, right? So the corollary of the secret that I shared a few moments back is a lot of the stuff you learned in here will actually become redundant a lot sooner than you expect it to be, simply because the rules of the game keep changing very quickly. And the best way to learn new tricks over time is to experiment. To experiment every single new thing that you come across which you believe has some potential. You should be the first one to try it out, because you might find the next growth hack, the next content marketing channel, or the next way to find good killer content before everybody else, right? So new creative formats, new audiences, new channels, new platforms, new features. And if you find any which I don't know already, please do share it with me, right? So my email ID is there at the bottom. That's about it. I think I've taken a little more time than I anticipated, but let's move on to questions.
Great, thanks, Alok. That was very interesting, and I love the last slide where you said that whatever I have shared may not be useful very soon. I think that's a interesting part of this domain. So we have a lot of questions, and Alok, one of the questions which I would want you to answer, can you share some of the great tools which can be used across different phases of content marketing, from maybe creation to finally measurement, and especially maybe considering small and medium businesses in mind, not talking about some of the fancy tools, but a startup which, has started doing content marketing, what tools can they deploy to find out, how they are performing?
Sure. So, I haven't really found a tool that helps you manage all of this end to end. So it will usually be a combination of tools. So you might have some tools that manage social very, very well. So you might have a Radian 6, or you might have Hootsuite or some of these other collaborative, dashboards where your team can actually manage multiple social accounts and multiple distribution channels at one place for social. And then of course you have publishing tools for blogs, whether it's WordPress or whether it is some other publishing tool that you use. That is the second tool that is very useful here, because you can change the SEO titles, meta titles, find the right way to present the content, tweak around with the templates. Of course, you have measurement tools like Google Analytics, which will play a very important role on the web to figure out where the traffic is coming from and what the engagement of that traffic is. And you have finally, you have tools which basically you will have to. So in our case, what we've done is actually created an internal dashboard which pulls data from some of these tools and then sifts it down to stuff like how many aggregate shares did we get per number of views for that across channels, right? And I think that's the kind of metric you need to track, which allows you to know whether that content worked or not. But I haven't really found any. I mean, so far I've tried a few, but I haven't really found anything which lets you do this in a very simple manner across multiple platforms.
Got it, Alok.
That's an opportunity for some of the entrepreneurs who might want to venture in this domain.
Sure, I think tools is a great space, and I think we are regularly seeing a lot of startups building new tools and a lot of success stories of acquisitions as well. Good. Alok, I think especially for smaller brands, there is always a challenge about creating quality content at a volume, because while quality is important, you really need to have some critical mass, because virality don't happen often. So for small and medium businesses which doesn't have in-house teams, what do you think is a great approach to begin when they always would have this challenge of creating high volume quality content?
Yeah, sure. See, one of the caveats there is that high volume might not always be a great thing to do. And I'll give you an example, right? So the way the Facebook algorithms work, especially for brands that post content, if you're posting at too high a volume and not getting enough engagement, then the probability that your next post will be actually visible to a large portion of your audience will be very low, right? So you don't want to actually be seen by the platforms as someone who churns out too much content which nobody wants to read, right? And so I would always say, and that's how we do it also, we don't put benchmarks on quantity as much as we do on quality. Like even one viral post that actually goes to 10,000 likes or 1 million views is more valuable than all the effort you put in 1 month behind several posts, right? And in the effort to find that one post which has the potential to go viral, if you need to do 100 posts, yes, then that's the point. I mean, those 100 posts should be seen as experiments in trying to get to that level of virality. But you shouldn't do it for the sake of building volume. You shouldn't do it for the sake of, I need to do a lot more content marketing. I mean, that should not be the objective here. The objective should be, how can I actually come up with something that positions my brand as a thought leader, which actually makes sure that people are talking about the way I'm doing this content marketing. And I think that's an even bigger objective than just coming up with content.
Got it, Alok. There are a lot of questions about how to do different stuff, and I can see some questions about the trainings as well. While I'm doing this, continuing this Q&A, I would just launch this poll to get a sense of people's interest. If you want to go deeper, learn about digital marketing in depth, just let us know if you are interested in maybe any of our upcoming courses. I can see there are questions about that, so it will help us understand your interest, and appropriately we can reach out to you. While you're responding to that, Alok, there are a lot of questions about video marketing. You mentioned that by 2017, majority of the content would be video. What are the great ways to optimize content, video-based content? So can you give some tips about optimizing video-based content?
Right. So, one of the learnings we have on video is that, uh, you know, it's actually different. It's very different from the way you do, let's say just posting a creative image on Facebook versus posting a video on Facebook. I think one of the learnings there is that the content per se has to be a lot more it has to be a lot more curiosity arousing right in the first few seconds, because if it's not, nobody will even watch the whole video, and therefore you will lose the gist of everything that you've built, right? And the second thing is that before you actually go and post it on social, you might want to show it to a select group of people. You might want to send it to like 500 people and get some feedback on it and tweak the video to make it even more appealing, right? Because video is something which you put a lot of effort into making. It's not like one blog post or one WordPress article or one social media post which you can actually do in a day. Most of these videos that you end up creating need a lot of thinking, and you actually spend maybe even a week to build them and come up with them. And I think that amount of effort you should keep the feedback loop going faster and involve people in the effort, and pivot that video till the point you feel that it's ready to release to more people because there is something genuine in this, right? So some of the brands which do this very well. I mean, there are a lot of brands which do spoof stories around news, right? So people who actually they regularly post these on Facebook and other feeds, but essentially what they're doing is they're coming up with spoof stories around the current news, and they make videos around them. Now most of those work because they're topical and because they're funny. But even if you look at what some of the music artists have done, like if you look at what Pharrell Williams has done with Happy, so he's actually encouraged people to make a video and publish it, right? So he actually wants more and more people to actually create a video just like his own, and the other videos have actually got more views than his, right? And if you look at even this most recent example of the Baby Doll song done by the Bhopal Engineering College guys, which is actually going viral right now, I think it's got more views than the original song. And one of the reasons is that it is just so clutter breaking, and it's just so different than what you would see every day in your news feed. And I think the pressure on doing that, not just in video, the pressure on doing something radically different than what everybody else is doing is only going to get worse and worse, because almost 80% of the brands are doing the same thing. I mean, they're actually coming up with very similar types of thoughts or content or contests or whatever, right? And I think if you have to do something clutter breaking, video is where the good thing is you can do millions of things, because there are many vectors along which you can play, unlike text or images where you have very few vectors to play with. On videos, the ideas and opportunities are sort of infinite. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Look, we had planned for this webinar till 4. Since we started late, can we take an extension of 10 minutes? Are you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I can see a lot of questions. Sure. Okay, thanks, Alok. Alok, there are a couple of questions about content curation. So I think for some people it may be a new term. If you can, very quickly just what is the difference between content creation and curation, and any good approach, any opportunities for people to identify, where to curate content from.
Sure. So I'll give you an example from what we did recently. We came up with a list of top 20 things to do in India before you die, right? So it included like swimming with the elephants in Andaman, and like 20 different things. Now, none of these things that we came, so none of the items in that list was something that we created. I mean, you could already swim with the elephants, or you could already watch Taj Mahal on a moonlit night, and everybody knows that. But I think the power of just selecting and applying some intelligence on, as a traveler, what would be the most appealing 20 things for me to do before I die, and just asking maybe 20 people, collecting that data, maybe reading about it online. So it requires, I think the difference primarily is that curation requires a lot of research into what sort of things are already popular and already working, and then coming up with lists or collections or cross sections of them. Whereas creation is actually just coming up with those items from scratch, right? And most of the time, they are more original, and even if they're inspired, if you create something, you're creating an extension of something you're inspired by. Whereas curation, many a times curation is just shameless, republishing of what's already. So a lot of blogs do this, right? So if something is trending, one blog writes about it, the other blog will actually write about it and tweak it a little bit, right? In my mind, that is curation, because the other blogger realized that there is an opportunity in actually picking this item up. And I think curation is about spotting those opportunities which are already out there and clubbing them together and publishing them.
Okay, got it. Cool. There are a couple of questions about organic SEO. Though the game is changing, it has become tough, but I think still there is a huge opportunity. But given the rules of the game have changed in the context of content marketing and also with the interaction of social, what do you think are the top things one should keep in mind while thinking about leveraging organic SEO?
Right. So one great thing that has happened in the last 6 months is that Google has also realized that content marketing is something everyone is doing, and the power that it has to help them curate what the better content on their search results are, right? So one way they are trying to do this is by incorporating the emphasis on +1s on the content that is being shown in the search results. So if you have a piece of content which has a significant number of +1s, which is the equivalent of likes for D+, it actually will rank better. I mean, we've done many experiments around this, and it actually does rank better than similar content which does not, right? And I don't know whether they include the other social mediums yet, but I think going forward, search engines will give a lot of emphasis on how well that thing is being perceived by people. And one way people vote is by sharing or liking or commenting or tweeting. And so I think as SEO evolves, the fact that you have better quality content will be signaled by how well your content is doing across your content distribution channels, and not just by optimizing your keywords and by optimizing your title and your description, which is something you have to do anyways. I mean, that's hygiene. But I think the shareability at some point will become an important part of the algorithm, because that's a human's vote saying that this content is great. Yeah.
Sure, got it. Alok, since this, as you had mentioned, that rules of the game will continue to change, there are a lot of questions people have asked is, are there any great resources one can follow, or are there some guidelines which people should use to be constantly experimenting so that they are able to discover trends ahead of their competition? So some resources which they can always refer, that would be useful.
Sure, there is a bunch of blogs. So what I'll do is, when I share this presentation for you to put up or share with the attendees, maybe I'll include a slide on a bunch of blogs that people can follow. But essentially, you've got to follow the people who are seen as thought leaders in this. You can follow them on Facebook, on Twitter, or on their blogs. But that's how I learn as well. I mean, there's no rocket science on this. And sometimes it's just about trying a new product that has emerged. So there might be a startup that comes up with a new tool, or there might be a new feature launched by Facebook last week. If you become the first brand to experiment with it, sometimes you learn that it really works well before everybody else does. And many times you read about it on some of these blogs. Many of the analytics tools also, you're not using them to the fullest because you don't realize the power they have. But when you read some of these blogs and see the use cases people have done, that's how you keep abreast with what's going on.
Sure, Alok, that would be very useful. So by the way, we are recording this session, so we'll be sharing this video of this webinar. We'll also share the presentation of Alok's session, so all of you will get that. And I think that resources list will be very useful, Alok. There are, Alok, other questions about, end of the day, business wants to use content marketing to produce growth, especially again from a startup perspective, they want to see some revenue jump. So how do you correlate the efforts you do on content marketing vis-a-vis the kind of results it produces for business? For example, Aninda has asked a question like, for you, the Holi campaign, like Holi parties, what was the value of that for Easygo? So if you can share some of your internal examples, the way you measured that, this was worth it.
Right. So, and people ask this in general about social, by the way, Pradeep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the value of doing anything on social? I mean, I have a very simple answer for these things that, when people buy something from you, they do it, out of love for what you do, right? And I think social and content marketing and all these activities actually help build that love, right? And I think that's the way most marketers need to look at it, that if you want more people to actually love your brand, admire your brand, and respect your brand, these are things that you can do without spending money on TV to build that credibility and trust. Without spending money on print media to build that credibility and trust, can you actually be seen as a thought leader by just coming up with interesting pieces of content? And trust me, it's not hard or expensive. It's actually just a question of experimenting and learning along the way. So my simple answer is it started to even create some impact on revenue for most companies, but it's nothing to write home about yet, because most of that impact that these things are creating are not measurable. But remember that that's what marketers who did TV and print a few years ago also used to say, that most of the impact we are creating is not measurable, therefore you should spend millions of dollars on this. But the difference is here you don't need to spend millions of dollars. I'm done. I need to run now. Thanks a lot for having me here. And maybe I can take some questions offline. People are free to email.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, Alok. So there are a couple of questions. Maybe if you have a minute there, someone has asked this question repeated times about what we are talking of content marketing, what to do about copywriting, any guidelines, benchmarks one should follow to make sure that, they are not getting into trouble.
Yeah, so I think there are 2 or 3 obvious things you can do. One is you can use tools like Copyscape, which actually check whether your writers are copying content verbatim from other sites and sources, which you always want to discourage. The second is you have clear guidelines for your writers on what sort of content they can use from other sources and what they cannot, and also what sort of content they can use but with proper attribution or with prior permission. So in those cases, we typically either ask the user whose photos we are using, for prior permission, or we make sure that they have a attribution license so that we can just attribute it back to them, link back to them, and use their image or pictures. And I think beyond this, you can have a very strong legal framework around how that content is being used and what terms of use you have defined on your site, so that in case anything arises, then you know how to react to it and what sort of liabilities you might have out of it. But the best is actually now you have a lot of copyright-free content out there. A lot of images on image platforms like Flickr and all are not copyrighted. Wikipedia is completely open source. There is also Getty Images, which has just gone to being copyright-free. A lot of their images are now copyright-free. So over time the number of copyright-free sources will keep going up. So I think it's not a matter to worry about. There'll be tons of content out there which you can use. Okay.
Sure, Alok. Thank you so much. By the way, guys, we have a great webinar next week as well on data-driven or performance-driven marketing, digital marketing. It's led by Manish Rich from SBN Group. I'm sure you would like it. We will take it, it will be more about really measuring performance of digital marketing campaigns. So looking forward to welcoming you in that webinar as well. Thanks a ton, Alok. It was very, very interesting webinar. We still have 80 people who are there at this point of time. So that speaks volume about people's interest in this area. So thanks, everyone. Thanks a ton. We will be sharing the recording and the presentation of this video. Have a great time. Bye-bye.